Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's Mr. Aderola here with another presentation. This one on Unit 4, The Causes of the American Revolution. This is Section 1 or Lesson 1 in your textbook, No Taxation Without Representation. There are two major subtopics related to this particular lesson, and that's dealing with Great Britain and new taxes on the colonies. This reading is meant to be a read along. It's also meant to help you with your summary technique as you go along. So keep in mind that's the objective of this particular presentation. Note that our during reading strategies still apply. And it's been a while since we got into the textbook. It's nice to get back into it now. But what I'd like you to do, I'd like you to make connections by relating information that you already know about the subject to what we're reading. By comparing your experiences with what you're reading, what personal connections can you make with the text as you go along? I want you to interact with the text by identifying the main idea and supporting details and asking questions, by identifying how the text is organized. Hey, look for those historical inferences, right? Look for problem solution, question answer, sequence of events, cause and effect, and compare contrast. Clarify understanding. Look at the photographs, charts, and other graphics to help you understand what you're reading, to deciding whether the information you're reading is fact or opinion. And of course, you've already completed the before reading activity on this. So you've gone through some of these pictures. You should be familiar with them. After reading strategies, we're going to recall by summarizing the selection in writing or out loud. What we're going to do is do it in writing. We're going to use a chapter summary sheet. Okay, use headings to question yourself about what you read as you move along. Respond by drawing logical conclusions about the topic and by forming your own opinion about what you've read. You'll do that with questions later on after we read. And then evaluate by searching the selection to determine how the author used evidence to reach conclusions, by forming a judgment about whether the selection was objective or biased. We'll mostly do this when we complete our document response for this particular section. And that document response will be on the Proclamation of 1763, and we'll talk about that later. And again, we often use this evaluate strategy when we're looking at that document analysis. We'll do it more than we do when we read the textbook. So that's something to keep in mind. We're going to summarize with a rules-based system. Recall is a primary strategy we use by summarizing the selection in writing. To effectively summarize, you want to be able to do the following. You want to be able to delete some information. Take out material that is not important for your understanding. Take out words or passages that repeat information. Substitute some information. Reword or rewrite information in a way that makes more sense to you. Keep the most important information. Once again, we're going to use the chapter summary sheet format for this particular summary. Our next one, we're going to use something called outlining, so we'll move on to a new skill. The chapter summary sheet breaks down by topic, subtopic, and paragraph. It also allows you to bullet your summary paragraph by paragraph. We've done this before. So let's move into the actual text, and I am on page 112, so if you want to follow along, that's where we're going to start. So, first paragraph under Dealing with Great Britain, this is our introduction. After their victory in the French and Indian War, the British controlled much of North America. Now they had to protect all this territory. To meet the challenge, King George III issued the Proclamation of 1763. This order prohibited or barred colonists from living west of the Appalachian Mountains on Native American land. For the British, the proclamation offered several advantages. It helped keep peace between the Native Americans and settlers. It also kept colonists near the Atlantic coast, where British authority was stronger. Finally, it allowed Britain to control westward expansion and the fur trade in the region. The king sent 10,000 troops to the colonies to enforce the Proclamation of 1763 and keep peace with Native Americans. Okay, one paragraph, big long paragraph as an opening introduction there. It's only one paragraph. So I'm going to go through that paragraph. It's long. I'm going to look through it, and I'm going to see what do I want to summarize here. Certainly after French-Indian War, British controlled much of North America. Had to protect it, right? So let's see what I did here. Look at that. So basically almost how I said it, right? After French-Indian War, Brits controlled North America, had to protect territory. I just simplified those two sentences down to down to those two phrases. Okay, note what I do at Britain, it's or British, it's Brit. North America is N America, capital N for North America. Had to protect territory. Kept it as simple as I possibly could. I actually took those two first sentences right out of the picture. King George III is obviously important. I have to mention him here. Issues with Proclam of 1763 barred colonists west of Appalachian Mountains. Okay, so I took that whole middle section there at the top, and I just broke it down. It says to meet the challenge. Yeah, no kidding, right? So I didn't write that. I deleted that out. I went right to King George III. Issues proclamation. I shortened to proclam. A simple way of writing it. Hey, I know what that means in my notes of 1763. Barred colonists west of Appalachian Mountains, and you're going to know I shortened Appalachian down a little bit too. This is okay to do when you're taking notes. I mean, I can clearly understand what those terms mean. So later on, if I need these notes, I can always reference back. So that brought me down to where, Native American land offered Brits advantages, keep peace with natives / settlers, keep colonists near Atlantic coast. Let's see how much I wrote for my next bullet. Okay, on native lands, several advantages, peace between natives and settlers. That's how I simplified that. Kept colonists near Atlantic coast, where Brits strong, control western expansion. I'm almost done. I may have one or two more bullets left here. Okay, so do keep that in mind. But this is a long paragraph, so I'm going to have 4 or 5, maybe 6 bullets. It wouldn't be unusual. I wouldn't mind keeping it to about 5. I have 4 already, so let's see what I did with this last one. Okay, a control fur trade. King sent 10,000 troops. Enforce proclam. Keep peace with natives. I really simplified those last 2 sentences. I broke them down. I believe that's my last one. Yep, I'm there. So there's my summary of this rather long paragraph. I had it into 5 bullets, and that's not a shock given the size of that paragraph. When you look on page 112, that's almost that entire page 112 in that one introduction. It's a lot right there. Okay, so before we move to enforcing trade laws, take a look at this. Feel free to pause the video, see how well you're doing here. Try, if you can, to actually take the notes first and then use this presentation to reflect back on what you did. See if you did something similar. That's a good way to learn. Now you're not so dependent upon this presentation. You're dependent more upon yourself. You're just confirming your answers. And that's really what you want to be doing with this. Okay. Hey, that takes care of the introduction. So I'm still on the bottom, page 112, but I am going to move on to enforcing trade laws. Okay, so bottom of 112, and this paragraph actually goes up to the top of 113. Great Britain needed new revenue or income to pay for the troops. The British also had large debts from the French and Indian War. The King and Parliament felt the colonies should pay part of these costs. So the British government issued new taxes on the colonies. It also enforced old taxes more strictly. To avoid taxes, some colonists resorted to smuggling. This caused British revenues to fall. So I'll stop right there. Again, we do this paragraph by paragraph. Well, the first thing that caught my attention about this paragraph is I know how colonists feel about taxation and the strict enforcement of laws. They don't like it. I mean, I know this from our last unit. So I'm looking at this, and I'm, like, a bunch of bells and whistles are going off in my head. So I'm like, oh, yeah, this is going to cause a lot of problems in the colonies. I can see that coming down the line. So how do I summarize paragraph 1? So, hey, Brits need new revenue, income, pay for troops, had debts from French Indian War. Let's see what I got. Holy cow, that's pretty darn good, right? All right, I shortened British down to Great Britain, GB, which is short for Great Britain. So if you can remember that, it's a good way to do it instead of saying Brits. You'll notice I'm using different techniques to show you there's more than one way to do this. Okay, so needed revenue, income, pay for troops and debts. I could have put a plus sign for and here from French Indian War. I don't think I'm totally done here. I got maybe the first 2 sentences. King Parliament, colonies should contribute to cost, issue new taxes. Okay, that kind of got the next 2 sentences. Enforced old taxes to avoid taxes, colonists smuggle goods, hurt Brit revenues. Okay, I had to write a lot for this one. This was a rather content-rich paragraph. Probably wrote more than I normally would, but I was kind of forced to do that given how much was just built into these few sentences. So do keep that in mind. Okay, but there's my summary for paragraph 1. I'm on the top of 113, and I'm moving on to paragraph 2. In 1763, Britain's Prime Minister George Grenville set out to stop the smuggling. Parliament passed a law to have accused smugglers tried by royally appointed judges rather than local juries. I can see a problem with this already. Can you? I can see a problem with this already. I got a bell ringing in my head. Grenville knew that American juries often found smugglers innocent. How about that? Parliament also empowered customs officers to obtain writs of assistance. These documents allowed the officers to search almost anywhere: shops, warehouses, even private homes, for smuggled goods. Again, bells and whistles going off all over the place. Now, the first thing that came to my mind when I saw this thing about smuggling, well, first of all, I'm thinking of that term salutary neglect. We talked, I'm using prior information here. Notice how I'm referencing back to that. I'm interacting with the text in this sense. And I remember that there was a lot of law breaking going on prior to the French Indian War. Now, all of a sudden, the British are going to put these laws, impose these laws on the colonies. The colonies are going to go nuts, right? They are. And what a shock. American juries freed the smugglers. They probably bought from them. Let's be honest. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot going on here. But notice something really bad. And I noticed this right off the bat. This isn't trial by jury. If you're appointing royally appointed judges, that's not trial by jury. That's guaranteed in the Magna Carta. That's a no-no. On top of that, they're going to go through people's homes now. That's a violation of property rights. That is also in the Magna Carta. So I'm looking at this and I'm already freaking out. I'm like, this ain't going to fly. How the British thought the colonists were just going to sit back and take this, I don't know, because this wasn't going to fly. So how did I summarize this? Let's take a look. Right, 1763, Grenville wants to stop smuggling. Let's see how I did this. Oh, I even went a little further. New laws from Parliament. I even mentioned that. I didn't think I went that far with that particular summary. Okay, American juries found smugglers innocent. Empowers officers to obtain writs of assistance. I had to substitute there. I couldn't write it the way the text had it here. So I wrote, smugglers are tried by royal judges, not local juries. Local juries let smugglers go. I kind of put that in my own words. It doesn't say that they're like that. But yeah, the local juries would often find the smugglers innocent. So I just noted that. And this last part, I just note what this writs of assistance is. Allowed officers to search anywhere: shops, warehouses, homes, for smuggled goods. Okay. Again, this was a content-rich paragraph. I had a lot going on here. And you'll note, despite this particular lesson being rather short, it's only 2 more pages long. That's it. There's a lot of content-rich stuff here. I mean, that's crazy right there. In this one paragraph, we see a violation of trial by jury and we see a violation of property rights. And we can go back, and I actually gave you these 2 in the Magna Carta. Go back and look at that assignment, and you're going to see that property cannot be taken from you unless you've had your day in court. And you have a right to a day in court with a trial by jury. And here are the British telling the colonists they no longer have those rights. I'm seeing a problem. I hope you are too at this point. Okay, so very good. Hey, we're on page 113. If you feel the need, you can stop the video and review this information. Once you've reviewed it, move on to the Sugar Act, which I'm going to right now. The Sugar Act. Okay, again, I'm on the bottom of 113, just above the proclamation of 1763 map right there, which is a great map to look at here. You can see how the British basically isolated the colonists on the coast and took away any advantage or any opportunity they had of spreading west. This was purposely done mostly to protect the fur trade, but also to control the colonists. Let's be honest. Okay, so I'm just looking at that map and I noticed that. Okay, let's move on to the Sugar Act. This one's a nice short paragraph. After 1764, Parliament passed the Sugar Act, which lowered tax on molasses the colonists imported. Why would they do that? I'm asking questions as I go along. Grenville hoped this change would convince the colonists to pay the tax instead of smuggling. The act also allowed officers to seize goods from accused smugglers without going to court. Oh, right? I just saw something else there that's a problem. Okay, so hey, 1764 passed Sugar Act, lower tax on molasses. Let's see if I got that. Oh, to stop, I did actually mention the end smuggling there too. I got that. I got it half done. Allowed officers to seize smuggled goods without going to court. Look what I did with without. W/O. That's without. That's shorthand for without. Okay, and man, if you don't see the problem with that right away, I certainly do. I hope you do. But yeah, this was yet another way of violating the Magna Carta. So it's something to keep in mind. Okay, hey, and moving on. Next paragraph, right? And I've moved on to page 114. And if you notice, this lesson ends at 115. This is short. The Sugar Act angered many colonists. They believed this and other new laws violated their rights. As British citizens, colonists argued they had the right to trial by jury and to be viewed as innocent until proven guilty, as stated in British law. Colonists also believed they had a right to be secure in their homes without the threat of officers barging in to search for smuggled goods. Holy cow, right? It was exactly what we just said because we learned about this already. We know the Magna Carta protects these rights. We know the English Bill of Rights reinforces those rights and their protections. What are the British doing? So, yeah, it's something to keep in mind here. So, paragraph 2, taking a look at this, I actually just had one bullet. It was a long one, but it was just one. Angered colonists, laws violated rights. Notice these aren't sentences. As citizens, demand trial by jury. Innocent until guilty. Right to secure homes from searches. Okay. Hey, if I want to throw my own notes in here, I might even mention as stated in the Magna Carta. Okay. Now you know why I spent so long talking about the Magna Carta and English Bill of Rights. Because when it comes to the American Revolution, you have to ask yourself, what was the big problem? And it was more than just taxes. It was a violation of rights that the colonists just believed they were entitled to because they were subjects of Britain. So you have to keep that in mind as to why this revolution occurs. It's more than no taxation without representation. It's so much more than that. That's an important part, but it's so much more. Okay. Hey, almost done with the Sugar Act, and there's only one more paragraph, and this one is actually a quote. And I kind of combined this here. British taxes also alarmed the colonists. James Otis, a lawyer in Boston, argued, no part of England's colonies can be taxed without their consent. Every part has a right to be represented. From the rights of the British colonies. Okay, this is again James Otis. Okay, that actually brings us to the end here. I just have a simple quote. I made this one paragraph 3. Taxes alarm colonists. I didn't quote Otis here. I summarized what he said. I said he's a Boston lawyer. Cannot tax people without consent or representation. Again, note how we're going back to the Magna Carta, the most, if you'd like, the most holy of holies of the, of documents for the rights of people, especially in Britain and prior to that, England. Okay, so you'll note that. Hey, that brings us to the end of this presentation. I'm actually going to hold this one up here. I'm going to do new taxes on the colonies as a separate presentation. Check your notes, see how they look so far. And again, I really would prefer you go ahead without using these presentations and then use these presentations to check your responses and see how well you did. Okay. Hey, thank you very much and have a good day.